Of it's time. So welcome this morning. For those of you, if you don't know me and you've tapped into to this from someplace around North America, I'm Keith Mathis. We have a company called the Mathis Group, and we provide free webinars on a monthly basis. And so let me thank you so much for taking your time. We will be on here for about 50 minutes, and we'll be going through some of the emphasis on communication, interacting with other people. A piece of news that I'm ecstatic about, and as you know, PMI, Project Management Institute, is going through changes, and they were phasing out as of December 30th the Registered Education Provider program. And of course, we had been one for years. And so that allows us to give PDUs like what you will receive here. And it allows us to be able to write new courses and give PDUs and do boot camps and other things like that. So we applied, and we applied this summer, and of course you had to go jump through all the hoops, but we have already been accepted. So we are an authorized training provider already. We're one of the first in North America, and they are requiring as of December 30th that you have to be certified in a certified instructor to teach PMP boot camps. And so this summer I was able to be in the very first boot camp they had. So I'm a certified instructor for PMI for their boot camps, and so we've already aligned with their new PMP material. And we've already started jumping through the hoops, and we can tell we're one of the first ones because there's still some unanswered questions as we ask. But all of our future boot camps from this point forward will be with their new material, and it is aligned with both this test and the new test. And so all of our curriculum is going to be coming from PMI. If everything works the way we think it is, then we think our passing rates will probably go up even higher. And so we're excited that we're an ATP now, and we're excited to get that training behind us. And so we've all been approved. And so those were huge jumps to get. So we're going to be able to continue PMP boot camps, doing all of our courses, and providing PDUs for you like crazy. So we're ecstatic over that. So this morning, folks are still jumping in. We're going to start off this morning. We're going to be dealing with communication and interacting with others. And so one of the challenges we get into with communication is that we think we're communicating, but the party on the other side is not understanding what we're doing or what we're saying. And many times they fail to ask any questions, or they fail to even signal to us that they do not understand. And so that causes a misunderstanding. Nothing seems to be worse than this than when we're talking about project management requirements and different pieces like that. Because we want to be able to eat, breathe, and understand the scope of the project. We want to be able to get that through interviewing and looking at requirements gathering processes, but we've got to communicate. And so if the customer says something and we misunderstand, we might deliver something that's not what the customer wants. So communication is extremely difficult. One of the challenges that we all get into is this issue of perception, and perception distorts everything that we're talking about when we talk about communication. It's the way we see the world or understand a message. So we look at information differently, we respond to it differently, and diversity can actually make us stronger in solving problems. But this idea of perception can cause us to look at things, look at information from a totally different way. Think about, for an example, how many times you've read an email and that email either upsets you because you got a message from that they were talking down to you, or they were being mean-spirited in that email or something like that, and yet come to find out when you finally talked with them on the phone or face-to-face or virtually, it was not like that at all, but you misread what those terms were. That's what we're talking about perception. I can perceive something that might or might not be true. Now, one of the pieces that we get into too is the impact of perception. Several things make us think this: tone of voice, values we hold, personal background, past experiences, emotional slants, behavioral style. For an example, if I'm having a bad day, I might pick up a perception of something that you didn't mean at all because I've already contaminated it with my bad day that I'm having. And so tone of voice, how many times have you or your spouse or significant other, something was said and they perceived that tone of voice was something worse than what you meant? And so those kind of things. And so that's what we're talking about with this issue of perception. So when we look at the organization and the project management world, and we look at what we're doing when we pull teams together, it's a miracle that we don't have even more conflicts because of this slide. And this slide kind of brings it together for us because you've got person A who's coming to the workplace and to the project team meeting, and they've got words, background, values, the judgments, emotional reactions, that, coming. And then you've got person B coming. And of course, we get to the workplace and we kind of merge those two cultures together. And then what happens in that type of situation is that we kind of have our third culture, and that's what the workplace culture is, of how things act, how things respond, what you say, what you don't say, and so forth. And so it all merges together in those pieces there. So it's very important for us when we come together as a team to make sure that we're understanding what someone's saying and to make sure that we're being precise in what we say with anything, because we don't want that misunderstanding. Wrong perception can cause us to do several things. Normally, we'll make a fast judgment call. We can confuse truth and fiction together. We can become anchored or unmovable in a decision because we're so convinced that it's this. For an example, you'll hear somebody think that somebody on the job is out to get them or management's out to get them. And so, you set me up for failure. And sometimes people really do believe that. They've gotten into that mindset and it's happened. Or they use words that exaggerate the circumstances. And so it's bad, but it's not as bad as what they think. And so you're trying to deal with that. So how do you clarify these perceptions? Well, you give and receive detailed information of what you mean, what you don't mean. If in doubt, check out what you thought they said. And if in doubt, make sure that they've understood you. And make sure you get the who, what, when, and where. Communicating has helped me in trying to give feedback to students because I start trying to look at it through the eyes of the students. And so my tendency is when I'm grading papers for my grad students or doctoral students, I'm looking for things that they have missed, obviously. But I have to be careful because if I will document that so that they understand what they've missed. But I've seen 15 things that I liked, but I didn't document that. So I've had to go the extra mile to document good stuff and bad stuff when I'm looking at grading somebody's paper. And that's what we're talking about too, sometimes with giving feedback. We sometimes will see the bad, but there's a lot of good that we saw as well. So how can I increase the understanding when I'm with someone? Well, I can give the goals or expected results up front. And a lot of times this is a disconnect. For an example, your millennials and your Gen Zs typically like more information. They're some of our most educated workers of all time. They're very open to coaching generally. They're very open to having direction. And so to give them the goal up front and say, here's where we're headed and here's the steps that I think we're needing to take is really good for that population of people. Now, obviously, that's not 100%. I'm making some generalities here, but in general, millennials and Generation Zs are very open to that. Stay on task. Don't chase a lot of rabbits all at the same time. Try to make sure that whatever you're talking about, you follow it all the way through and give them the detailed information and be as descriptive about what you want or don't want as possible. Remember, nobody's going to be able to read your mind. Nobody's going to be able to understand what your goals are, especially those first few times. Can you make this message as simple as possible? Can you use words without using acronyms for everything? Just this morning, one of the deans sent me an email saying that I needed to check something, and he gave an acronym, and I didn't have a clue what this acronym meant. And so he said, do you mind checking this? He said, there's something here. So I sent back and I said, I'm confused. I've never even heard of this acronym in all the years that I've been there. He sent back and said, okay, all it is it's a special file. And he said, here's where you find it. And so I've never heard that. But from his perspective, he assumed that everybody knew what this acronym was when he used it. And so the point is that be careful using the acronyms. Acronyms mean different things. Be proactive in getting and receiving the information. If I'm not understanding you or you're not understanding me, we need to say something. We need to make sure that we surface that. Also, make sure that we have undivided attention of people when we're talking. If they're preoccupied with 3 other things, it's going to be hard for them to remember what you've said. And it's really difficult in the workplace today because we have a lot of people talking to us at the same time. Many of you are on multiple projects. And so the thing is that you've got a lot of things on your plate and these projects are changing drastically sometimes. The other thing you can do is look at the face, look at the eyes of somebody when you're communicating with them to see whether or not they're understanding you or whether or not they're, they're in la la land while you're talking with them. Explain what you're doing, explain why, watch the body language, what's the face. And then when you ask for questions, understand that most of the time when people don't have questions, they're not going to have the question until they get in the middle of whatever it is they're doing, because it sounds fine, but they don't have anything to test it against. And so when they get in the middle, that's when they're going to notice it. Now, here's some questions to ask yourself if misunderstanding seems to be common in your communication. One of the first things is that am I using common words, and are they understandable to other people? Now, by common words, I'm talking about not acronyms, and I'm talking about are we using words that people normally use? Have you ever been around that person who I call them the $100 word person? They want to use all the $100 words. I always question whether or not they got that toilet paper that has a word a day on it, where they're trying to show off like how smart they are. That's the worst thing to do, because you're using a word first off to show off how smart you are, but people are not communicating with you because they don't understand the word, and so they're having to look that stuff up. That's silly. Don't do that stuff. Are there interferences that while you're talking with them, or do they have other interferences, other things happening? Have you tried different approaches with that person that you keep miscommunicating with? Have you talked with them and then followed up with an email? Have you followed up with a text afterwards? Did you give them a checklist? I mean, there's a lot of different things that sometimes will help in something like this. Have I discussed ways for better communication with that person? I'll give you an example. I'm a note person. And so for you to give me a note is a good thing, because I'll carry my notes, and I check my notes, and I create my plan for the day, and I check my stuff off. My wife is not a note person. So to give her a note is almost offensive to her. And so, but that's just the difference of how we look at things. And so for her to give me a note and say, here's 3 people that you're needing to call, perfect. That's what I want. If for me to give her a note and tell her there's 3 people she needs to call, she's not wired that way. And so understanding how a person is wired will make a huge difference. Now, sometimes when you and I are talking and there's misunderstanding, or there seems to be some tension, we need to take a look at how can we soften this. So let me just say, first off, what I don't have up here, but one of the first things I will do is I'll speak a little bit softer, because if I'm a loud person anyway, and so that's that speaker voice that I deal with all the time. And so if I'm talking with someone, I can come across much more commanding because I'm loud. And so to soften how you're speaking a little bit. The other things that are more common that will help all of us most of the time will build trust. Use eye contact. Look at the person and then look away. The time period is about 4 seconds. Because if you'll look at a person, then within 4 seconds, glance away and then glance back, everything's fine. If you continue to look at them longer than those 4 seconds, it starts just flat out starts getting creepy. And so what happens is that you feel like that person's staring at you or something like that. Be responsive when using the person's name. A way to soften things using the person's name will actually, psychologists tell us, will soften the situation. Be sincere when you're speaking to where you're trustworthy. Be respectful in tone or conduct. Be a person of integrity. You tell the truth. And if you mistold something, or if you told them something that's wrong, you're a person of integrity that contacts them and says, hey, here's what I found out. I told you that we were 2 days ahead on that project. Actually, we're not. We're really about a day behind. And I just wanted to update you and let you know. I'll give you the paperwork tomorrow, but today I just wanted you to know. So be as optimistic as possible. Be selective and pick words that will not escalate a situation. If you've ever been in a situation for conflict, we make statements that sound right to us, but we don't realize how it sounds to the other person. Bob, I'm really glad to see you in here today. The reason I called you in here is I wanted to talk with you about something. You are a great project team member, and that word but just nullified what I said. And so the word however, the word nevertheless are 2 words that will actually let me say, Bob, you're a great team member. Nevertheless, I need you to start being on time for the team meetings. And so that's an example of just changing one word will make a difference on whether we just nullified what we said or whether or not we are emphasizing and supporting what we said. Now let's talk about meetings. Just poke me in the eye with bad meetings. And I know with as many people as we have on here, you guys have been to bad meetings as well. And we've all sat there and think, oh my goodness, what am I doing sitting here? I don't even need to be at this silly thing. Well, we're looking at some $30 billion of lost revenue due to bad meetings. And I think we've all attended some of those. But a well-organized and controlled meeting makes a huge difference on communication. And so whoever is running that meeting, it's your responsibility, if you're running the meeting, to run that meeting with the efficiency and communication tools that you need. And so that means controlling time, the scope and time of the meeting. That means inviting only those who are essential for the agenda, limit the time, set meeting goals for yourself, and create some kind of agenda. Even if the agenda's on a PowerPoint, that's fine. Put the agenda up here and start going down through there. And those ideas or those topics that people want to steal your meeting, put that, be willing to confront that and put that on the agenda for the next week, or set it aside for another meeting. But if we can run our meetings more efficiently, people will come to those meetings like crazy because they know it's not going to be a waste of their time. We can express the goals, the level of team commitment we need. We can express deadlines in those meetings. We can identify critical phases. You can do a lot of things to move your project forward in that meeting, but you've got to be able to bring those things out. And you could point out likely problem areas and agree on the priorities of the project. But if you're facilitating this meeting, then you've got to be able to control it and let people talk and slow down the motor mouths and resurrect the dead heads and get them to share, but you've got to be able to get them ingrained into that meeting. Now, here's some of the basic roles for an effective meeting. There's got to be a leader, participants, somebody's got a scribe or a recorder, and management's roles. So let's look at them real quick. When we're talking about a leader, that means start on time. I'm notorious for starting on time. I want to start on time because that's what time I told people we were going to start. And so I'll start on time, even sometimes when I probably shouldn't have started on time. I started on time at a meeting and the CEO and 3 vice presidents for the company weren't there yet. And you talking about ticking some people off, but they weren't late anymore. I will tell you that. But my thought was, you know what? We said 8 o'clock, and 8 o'clock I started the meeting, and so they came in. And so I mean, it's fine. He's the CEO, and he all of his vice presidents, but everybody knew whatever the time for the meeting was, if I was in charge of it, I was running the meeting, because that's just makes sense. Balance input, this is talking about with the motor mouse. Follow the agenda, clarify the information. If somebody's saying something and it's not understood or it's not clear what they're saying, you can ask questions as a facilitator or leader to be able to clarify what they mean. And then you're seeking consensus among the team. And a vast majority of our decisions really are consensus, because what we will do is we will pull together and and talk and agree without having to have an actual physical vote. And watch the chasing rabbits, and there's going to be some chasing rabbits, we all know that, and some of it is okay. Some of it is going to be for laughter. Some of it is going to be for explaining something else. But then also prepare early for that meeting. Know what you're going to say, know where you're going in that meeting. Now, what's the participant's role? Come to the meeting on time. Be prepared, do their fair share of whatever it is they've agreed to do, discuss the issues, not the people. Well, things were good until Frank got on board. Listen, it doesn't matter who got on board. We've got to talk about the issues, not about the people. The blame game will come up sometimes with our meetings, and we want to watch that and guard that. Listen to the views of others and demonstrate respect during and after the meeting. We should be respectful people, and most of you are going to find yourselves, you're good people. You try to be respectful in all situations, and so that's not going to come that hard to you. What about the role of the recorder or the scribe? Oh my goodness, is this not a thankless position? Many times the leader tries to do that, and I hate doing that. I hate for leaders to do this, because your job is to facilitate the meeting. So it's real easy if you're the recorder that you're recording something when you should have been facilitating, and the meeting will get out of hand, or you will miss something that was said. So try your best not to be the recorder. You created the agenda. You asked the team members to contribute to the agenda, but try to get someone to be the recorder. And so document who's at the meeting. This is a huge deal. Who attended that meeting? It's amazing how many times some of this will come up, and you can go back and look and see, well, you were at the meeting that we decided this. Well, I wasn't there. Yes, you were. You were there on June 15th. Focus on the topics. List who's responsible for the next meeting, what the action items are. That should be part of your notes. Create, with the help of the team, the next agenda. Now, I have a draft. I'll send it out and say, hey, this is what we're talking about. What else do we need to add to our agenda for this? And then when people send it in, I add it to the agenda, and then I'll email it back out and say, here's what I've got. Anything else need to be added? And so on that afternoon before the next day of meeting, I'll send it out to everyone. Say, this is our agenda for tomorrow, and that will encourage people to get their stuff done. And maintain some type of team file or notebook for the minutes to permanently be recorded and held on to there. Now let's focus on, that was more personal communication. Let's focus these last few slides. I say the last few, these we still have probably about 27 slides real quick here. Let's focus on project communication for the project itself. It includes processes necessary to ensure that the information needs of the project and its stakeholders are met through development and artifacts and implementation of our activities designed to achieve effective information exchange. That's a monster sentence that they've just given you here from PMBOK. But the point is that project communication is making sure that we've got the right documentation and we're communicating to the right people. The communication plan is the driver of this. And so it's going to include several things: the format of the reports, the frequency, individuals who have the responsibility of generating the reports. Now, when you see these bullet points here, this is part of a large Excel sheet or a large project sheet. And so what happens is these are categories that we're looking at. Now, as we talk about communication, I should have blown this up a little more. I apologize. I thought when I looked at it on my slide, it was okay, but I think it's going to be pretty small for you. This is a general process for the communication process of a project. So I want you to see one of these. So you start the project. Obviously, you've got goals and objectives, information data needed, who and when, might have change if there's any changes, status might be a piece of it, giving status updates, and then lessons learned, and then goes to the repository. You'll notice for status, you've got risk, cost, performance, quality, and of course schedule would be part of that as well. And the point is that there's several components that would be part of a normal communication piece. And a lot of times when we're thinking about communication, we think, well, we communicate very well because we have an external drive over here. Understand that in PMBOK's world, it's more proactive in that. I send you what I want you to see. I don't wait for you to find it in the archive. With my doctoral students, every one of them I've talked to about project management because their dissertation is very much like a project, or is a project. But I've also told them, when you upload an update to your dissertation, send me a copy with a note telling me that you've uploaded. I don't want to have to search every day to see what they've uploaded. I want to be able to read it and give them feedback instantly so that we can keep that doctorate going and they can keep moving along. So how important is communication then? Well, a survey that came out that Michael Newell did in his book said, which of the following do you consider important management skills? 84% said communication was one of the most important skills for a manager. Organizational skills were 75%, team building was 72, leadership skills were 68, technology skills are 48. Now, many of you are from a technology group and are part of the technology department at the state or at your company or whatever. And time again, when I have had executives in a class and they've seen this, they say absolutely the soft skills are the most important for them. That they can get somebody with some technology skills and get them trained over time, but they want those soft skills in people because of the conflict and because of all the things that come up when you're talking about trying to be part of a project or be the project manager. Now, the manager's time, 80% of the time is spent communicating. Now, project manager is going to be very similar to that because you're managing a project and you're managing resources and people. So half of communicating time is spent listening. And most people recall about 50% of what they hear. And so you can see how this whole thing of communicating starts dropping. After 2 months, you only recall 25% of what you heard. And so you can see how we have a tendency not to remember it long term. Now, in project management, there's 3 types of communication. One is vertical, horizontal, and diagonal. So vertical is up and down the communication, up and down the organization. It's based on the organization's chart of hierarchical chart. If you're in a traditional or weak matrix organization, this is very common to you. You talk to your boss, who talks to their boss, who talks to their boss, and so that's all very common. And so you have that. So that's going to be vertical. You have horizontal, and this is going to be lateral communication. You communicate with peers, coordinate activities with peers. Now, many of you know this very well. This is where the gossip comes from. Don't we don't believe the gossip, but some of the gossip kind of helps break up the day. You know, people will tell you stuff and it's funny, you know, and even if you don't believe it, it's still one of those things that you can't stop 100% of the gossip. But it's communicating with each other, communicating with peers, and we'll share different things with laterally that we might not share upline. And I'm talking about even true things, not just the gossip. Diagonal communication involves upward relationships with managers, officers from other areas, with subordinate groups and departments. It includes downward communication with third parties, contractors, suppliers, consultants. This is almost never shown on an organizational chart, but this is important to the success of the project. You have diagonal communication channels that you connect to if you've been at the organization any length of time and you've run projects. Here's how this works. See if you resonate with this. Something will happen on the project and you will call Bob, who calls Betty, who calls Tom. And you get something done on this project behind the scenes. You can't find any of that on an organizational chart at all. But you knew who to call, and they called somebody, and they called somebody because of your influence. And so, and the bottleneck, whatever that was, got taken care of. That is a good example of diagonal communication. Now, PMBOK gives you 3 processes to communicate: plan communications management, manage the communication, and monitor the communication. Now, with plan communication, we know this is the plan that we have to plan all the communications of the project. So it's developing the approach for that plan and determining what stakeholders we need to have on this list, because stakeholders will get different types of communication and reports and information. Most of the communication planning is done very early in the project, but it has to be reviewed because stakeholders will change. And so it's not uncommon for you to bring on a consultant. Well, now you've got a new channel that you have to communicate with. And so we have to watch that. There's also a communication requirements analysis. This determines the information needs of project stakeholders. These requirements are defined by combining the type and the format of information. And so the idea that we're going to just send everybody everything is not appropriate in many projects. Sometimes you're talking about classification issues, secret, top secret, those type of things. One group could know something, another group could not know something. And so even if it's not secret and top secret, still might be and not be appropriate for them to see this. We also get into the communication technology, and this has been a huge deal with project management since March with the virus. All of us assumed everybody had technology, but since the virus and everybody started working from home, we really have seen the gaps in being able to provide communication technology across North America, across Kansas, across the Midwest. There are so many dark spots in the Midwest that have no technology. So methods used to transfer information among project stakeholders, factors that affect choice of communication, what's the urgency, availability, ease, what kind of project environment is this, what's the sensitivity or confidentiality of the information, and just flat out the availability of technology. Analysis and communication planning means that we're looking to see not just to have somebody wiped out with so much communication, having to look at so many emails and so many reports. We want to get the right stuff to them. We want to make sure they're reading the right things. The information needs of stakeholders should be analyzed, developed a methodical, logical view. The analysis should consider methods and technologies suited to the project that will provide the information needed. We've got more ways to communicate today, and yet we still have miscommunication on so many things. Part of managing that communication, though, is going to be the process of ensuring timely, appropriate collection, creation, distribution, storage, retrieval, management, monitoring, and ultimate disposition of project information. Now, as you look at this, one of the things that comes back to haunt us that we still are challenged with is part of this communication that we're having to communicate to all these stakeholders has to be metrics. Key performance indicators and metrics that we're trying to measure. The challenge we get into is we still don't do very good collecting those metrics or analyzing those metrics. So as you communicate, what are you communicating? Is it the right communication? Is it the metrics? Are they getting enough enough data to be able to analyze and make good decisions in the future? There are barriers we know in communication. Messages can be blocked or distorted. Meanings can be changed considerably because we misunderstand each other. Distorted perceptions happen in communication. The receiver may not be in the proper frame of mind to receive the message. Many factors can influence perception: environment, mood, subject matter, motivation, needs, experience. Now, distorted perceptions, let me give you an example. Many years ago, I lost my dad. And so I was down in Tennessee and I'm the executor. I have three sisters. And so we have the day of the funeral, we have the funeral. And of course, we're at the house going through papers. And if you've had to do anything like this, you know what I'm talking about. You're going through papers and you're trying to just kind of sort through what bills need to be paid and what we're going to do with, you know, the house and what we're going to do with everything. So as we're doing this, family members are pulling up with U-Hauls, deciding that they're going to come get the furniture. And one of them said something about that my dad gave him, said he could have the shotgun when he died. And it just ticked me off. And the reason it ticked me off, because that day we had just had the funeral. Now, the truth is, I didn't care about the furniture and I really didn't care about the shotgun, but what ticked me off was it was that frame of mind that we were all in and trying to figure this out, and people were basically coming up with their hand out. And so my statement was, you know, get out. And, you know, I tried to do it nice, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, get out. You're not getting anything. You know, we'll sort through and decide what we're going to do or not do. But I say that because your perception is that, what are you doing? I mean, you know, I haven't even spent a day with my dad dead, and we don't even know what we're doing with anything. And excuse me. So, you know, you're doing all that. And so my sisters were very supportive but it was so inappropriate. So anyway, I say that I've gotten cough here. All right. So you also have a barrier in communication is distrusted sources. The information may be wrong. The information may be right, but perceived wrong because of past inaccuracies. Are you not tired of hearing so many different things about the virus that might be true, might not be true? Oh my goodness. And so, you know, you keep going back to, okay, what do we really know? And there's so much information out here. Does this drug work or does that drug work? And you should wear a mask, shouldn't wear a mask. I mean, oh my goodness. And so, you know, we want some solid information to be able to use. Transmission errors. How many times have we all sent something by email and it went to email heaven? We never found it. We don't know where it went. It left us, but it never made it to them. So where was that email? Where did that email end up? That's just crazy. But we get caught into these things. They're not getting it. So it's receiving and sending messages can only be within a framework of common experience, common understanding, language, culture. Even the transmission through technology is a piece of this. Culturally, if I don't understand your culture, and of course, that's a cool thing with being diverse, is that you learn something about the other cultures and you learn something about the other languages. So how can you improve project communication? Make the message relevant for the receiver, reduce the message to its simplest terms, organize it into a series of steps or stages or checkpoints, and repeat the key points. Improve your listening by not interrupting them until they finish their conversation. Let them say what they're wanting to say. Put the speaker at ease, appear interested, and I always smile when I see that, because what we really need to do is be interested, not just appear interested. Try to cut any distractions out that we can, and then periodically kind of sum up what we think they said and make sure that we're getting the right message, because improved listening is going to make a difference. And so many times, here's what we do. We start listening to someone, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, we've already phased out. We'll hear a little bit, and then we phase out and start thinking about something else or what we're going to say, and then we'll phase back in. And that happens very, very quickly when we're talking about communicating. Then after we have the plan, after we have actually rolled that communication plan out, you're going to have to monitor communications to see, how are we communicating to the right stakeholders with the right information? Are they getting the right metrics to make the decisions? All of that has to be looked at. And it's a process of ensuring the information needs of the project and stakeholders are met, determines if the planned communication artifacts and activities have had the desired effect of increasing or maintaining stakeholder support for the project's deliverables and expected outcomes. So in other words, it's the communication that I'm sending out, keeping the stakeholders engaged. Is it answering the stakeholders' questions? And some of that is going to include performance reporting. Now, as we talk about reporting performance, we've got to go beyond cost and schedule as reporting. That's what management wants, and that's fine. But many times you're needing quality, you're needing other things to be able to report rather than just cost and schedule. That project could be having severe problems and still be on time and on budget right now and have other problems that's going to cause this thing to bite the dust. So collecting and disseminating that performance information is going to be important, and you're going to do it most likely through status reports, progress reports, and even forecasting what's going to happen to this project. And so these performance reporting is going to be very, very important in keeping everybody engaged. When we talk about status reporting, it describes where the project stands now. Progress reporting describes what the project team has accomplished. And then forecasting is going to predict future project status and project progress. When we talk about forecasting, you're really doing it from EAC and ETC. Those are your two most common forecasting formulas. Your EAC will forecast what the final project should cost if performance and work stay the same. ETC will forecast how much more money you need to finish the project if work and performance stay the same. So those are two of your biggest forecasting formulas and forecasting acronyms: estimate at completion and estimate to complete. Performance reviews, meetings held to assess a project progress. Variance analysis, we do these all the time. Comparison of actual project results to the expected. And then you're looking at trend analysis, an examination of project results over time to determine if performance is getting better or worse. And you could see trend analysis from a lot of things. For an example, are we churning a lot of people off of our team? Are people quitting our team? Are we starting to get a little bit further behind? About every 3 weeks, we're getting a little bit further behind, a little bit further behind. That's that trend you're starting to notice. And so, in other words, if we don't take steps of action, then it's going to be hard to go ahead and catch it back up. Earned value is one that is used like crazy to measure performance. The federal government has mandated it, and state governments use it. Private industry uses it. But the problem with this is that many times people will check off that they want this, but they don't check it. They don't monitor it. They don't ask their vendor to provide some of it. So it reports project status in terms of both cost and time. Earned value is the budgeted value of work performed regardless of the actual cost. And so when you look at earned value, you're looking to see how much work did we actually finish up. In status reporting, what types of information will be regularly reported? Sometimes this has to be talked about. Sometimes you have to create a checklist of what type of information should your team members be bringing to the team every week. Who will receive the reports? How will the information for these reports be gathered and delivered? Now, I've seen reports that were really, really easy to understand, but I've seen reports that were just a mess. There was so much data on there, and you could not dissect it very easily. And so if you've got complex data that you're trying to get across to your people, break pieces of it out and show it in a chart as well so that people can see a graphic over here. Many of the people on your team are graphical anyway, or more visual anyway, and so they will get more out of that graphic. But show it in a graphic as well as in an Excel sheet. Project reports could include cost status, schedule status, technical performance status, S-curves, earned value charts, variance reports. Any of these kind of reports are going to be common in project management. And so if you're bringing this in, you're keeping everybody as updated as possible. Now, cost status reports is what management's going to be looking at in most cases. It updates on the budget performance weekly, monthly, or some other time frame. It doesn't matter. But it can pinpoint potential problems while there's still time to correct it because they're watching cost. However, let me say it again. Many projects can be on budget and on schedule and still have major flaws in that project. A schedule status the same way. You updates to schedule performance ahead or behind schedule, which will make a difference. You identify adjustments which need to be made to keep it on time. And once again, we might be on time, and if the project doesn't work the way the customer wants, it doesn't matter. We're on time and on budget, but of course it's not performing the way the customer wanted. So that would be a failed project. What about technical performance status report? Updates on the technological challenges. technical solutions. Your technology people are looking to see, does it provide the features and the functionality that the customer wanted? A technical performance status report can speak to that and can allow questions to be asked in these directions. In-person performance reporting. Preparation is the key. Have your notes in order, have your charts made out. We're seeing a lot through virtual, and that's fine, but a lot of times people are just getting an email, and that's fine, but many times people are not taking that report as serious as they are with a meeting. They get it by email, they might or might not read that, but in a meeting, they're going to hear it, they're going to see it, and it's going to be explained. And they have the opportunity to ask questions. So it's a much stronger type situation in that meeting. In the guide to project management, Jeff Davidson wrote about this, and he said, if you have a video to present, and he was talking about in-person performance reporting because you're not going to be at a meeting, he said, create a video, but he said, if you have a video to present, make it no longer than 12 minutes. He said 4 minutes would not be too short depending on your project, how far along you are, to whom you report, and other dynamics of your organization. Now you're seeing more and more people actually create a video of their presentation. First off, because it's virtual. Secondly, because of the demands of how many projects that they have on their plate. So what's happening is people are actually creating a video because they've got 15 other meetings that they have to attend, so they can't be there live. But they are able to be seen, they're able to present their material through Zoom or whatever, and they're able to then explain what the highs and lows of the project are. And the video can then be archived as part of the information. Now, also conduct the lessons learned session. In addition to communicating the closure of the project in writing, it's advisable to have a mechanism for group review, and that's almost always going to be a lessons learned in traditional or waterfall type of projects, and it's going to be a retrospective in agile type projects. And so a lessons learned session is a valuable closure mechanism for team members regardless of the project's success. A lot of times people will do a lessons learned on a project that fails, and that's good, but did you do a lessons learned on a project that was successful? Because that will also help you too. That's going to give you some key items to watch that were good. And then of course, those that have failed will give you key items to watch when something has failed. Now, as we conduct lessons learned sessions, such a session provides official closure to the project. It also provides a forum for team member recognition, offers an opportunity to discuss ways to improve future processes, procedures. So a lot of things about this lessons learned allows you to be able to pull it all together with you and your team, and it allows you an opportunity to be able to say good things about your team and thank them for what they've done. And mentally, emotionally, as well as the project documentation has been pulled together. Now, I think we're at the end of our communication webinar, but let me close out with a couple of things here. We are going to be starting in August a group coaching program. It's going to be 12 weeks long. It is going to be worth 24 PDUs. And so if you'd like to read more about this, you will have, you're going to have assignments, but your assignments you can turn in anytime you want that week. You don't have any specific time you have to be anywhere in this course, because you can do anything you want in those 12 weeks. You just have to get your assignments in with those 12 weeks, but you'll have different assignments. Some will be some checklists, one will be a little short video that you'll be doing, but you'll have 12 weeks that you'll be working together with other project managers in North America. You'll get 24 PDUs for it after you complete your assignments, and you'll have a little bit of training. There'll be some group events that's going to happen where you'll see some interviews that I will do with some key people talking about some key issues, but it's going to be really a good thing for most project managers and team members to be able to learn to pick up some key things from some other project managers, and you'll be able to interact with them. You're going to have discussion boards every week, and so you'll have to interact with project managers who are doing things similar and doing some things differently than you are, and it will be a wealth of information. When we tested our 7-day group running successful project group coaching program, some of the feedback that came back was that they loved being able to interact with these other project managers. So this will be 12 weeks long. We have a special price of $7.99 for this. It's normally going to be $14.50 per person, $7.99, but you do have to sign up before we get going on that thing, and so all the sign up is online. The other thing I want to mention to you is that if you haven't picked up your PMP, don't hesitate to be willing to do that virtually. virtual PMPs is where a lot of things are moving. It's much more cost effective for everyone, and it gives you the capability to be able to still interact with people. The idea that you're going to do a face-to-face PMP probably before the middle of next year is probably slim. Most of the companies, including ours, the PMP virtual is driving everything, and face-to-face, people just don't feel comfortable being in a hotel meeting room. We do have one final face-to-face that we're going to do our best to do, and it's going to be in Overland Park, Kansas. We have one in St. Louis. That one's going to be canceled. The room is very small, and by the time we do social distancing, we're not going to be able to get people in there safely. And so we're going to be canceling the one in St. Louis face-to-face and switching it over to virtual. But the one in Overland Park will be a 4-day face-to-face. I'm planning on teaching it right now, and so we're hoping to be able to do that face-to-face unless Kansas gives more restrictions with the virus, getting more population. So we still have that this year, but consider doing the virtual. The virtual is people are passing at the same rate that they were passing before, and so it has not taken away from anything like that. So let me stop right here and handle some questions from you. We still got a little bit of time, a couple of minutes here. So what questions do you have about communication or about anything really? Okay, nothing. All right, well, let me thank you so much for being part of this webinar. And I think next month, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's on performance. And so I'd love to have you there and be part of that. And so anyway, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope you stay super healthy with you and your family, okay? Bye now. Thank you so much again for being part of this. Have a great week. Bye.